well and just kind of see yeah, what that's all about.
Great.
All right,
Thanks.
I'll start it
Okay.
up, man. All right, welcome to another episode of God Yay or Nay. I'm here with Benjamin Decker, author of Modern Spirituality. Thanks for joining me, Benjamin.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you, Nora.
Yeah, man, your book is great. This is your fourth book, and yeah, I just wanted to introduce you to my audience. So why don't you do that? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and like tell us about your childhood and growing up, and then how you kind of got into this whole kind of the spirituality and everything.
Right, yeah, I wrote my most recent book. My fourth book is Modern Spirituality. My first book is Practical Meditation for Beginners, and I've got two other books. And all the underlying theme of all of them is directly linked to my childhood, I think. The underlying theme of all of them is about the fact that all of the different ancient spiritual traditions have great wisdom in them. All of the different cultures and traditions are compatible when you look at their deepest core. And on the surface, they're blatantly incompatible in so many ways,
Hmm.
you know. And the idea is based on a principle that I was taught growing up, that there is the difference between the letter of the law, which means the specific words or the specific details of the way a law or rule is written. And then there's the spirit of the law, which is about why that rule is written, why that law is written. And so the what I believe is that the areas where we really disagree and where we're really at odds are areas where all of us need to rethink what we've been believing for generations. And then the areas where we agree is where all of us need to rethink whether we're really standing in integrity with that. And I was raised, I'm a direct descendant of the pioneer families, that's what we call them, the founding families of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Um, a new world religion that was started about 200 years ago. It's Christianity with a twist, with a new book, with a new scripture, the Book of Mormon. And the concept is that there are things that we do as a community that affect the higher world, the eternities. And so there's a practice of becoming as much like Christ as possible. We literally call it becoming a saint. By overcoming your lower nature, by overcoming your what they call the natural man. That's what they call it in the Book of Mormon. So you become a saint. That's the whole point of the religion and the tradition that I was not only born into, but really my entire family created it. You know, and so uh, as as first and foremost a channeling of the Book of Mormon, the release into the world of a new scripture. Um, but then also through uh, sort of adoption of occult and esoteric principles that go back to ancient Egypt via the Freemasonry lineage, paired with the Judeo-Christian, Islamic, Abrahamic tradition with the Old and the New Testament King James. So that's sort of like the spiritual psychological reality that I was born into. And one of the great principles of the founding documents of that church, which was more than my family's religion because it was our family, so it was like our DNA. It was almost like our race. Like being Mormon isn't a race because it's international and there's people of all races, but it's a culture. And so being born into that, there's an idea that everyone's got something good and that God has always been speaking to all the people all over the world, and that there's truth everywhere to be sought and found. And so that gave me sort of the original imprint that led me to seeking about spirituality, about the other side, about what happens after we die, what happens before we are born, the higher principles of the universe, and miracles. So actual demonstrations of miraculous occurrences, UFO sightings, near-death experiences, astral projection, phenomena, and of course, um, it all comes back to society. So how we live together in a day-to-day basis. So it all kind of came together through just sort of living life. I was always interested in those things, and then became a Reiki master, meditation teacher, hypnotherapist, got a million different certifications, truth seeker, creative here and there. And now most interested in the intersectionality of the higher principles of wisdom that are universal and their relationship with society and politics.
Yeah, that's pretty damn amazing, man. I like how you were saying like so now your interest is in those like higher principles. So you basically like in the book you actually kind of laid this out a little bit. You talk about higher nature and lower nature. So do you want to kind of maybe explain that to the audience a little bit and yeah, let us know what that's
Definitely.
about?
Definitely, we all have different aspects of ourselves. There's that song. I think it was like a '90s song, maybe not. I don't remember who it was, but the lyrics were, "Can we forget about the things I said when I was drunk?"
Ha 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 ha.
And it's like, and you don't need to be drunk on a substance to be drunk. You can be drunk emotionally,
Hmm.
and you can be swept up in a moment. And it's like, can we forget about the things I said when I was being unmindful? Can we forget about the things that I said when I wasn't really being myself? Look, we all have different aspects of ourselves. There's the part of you that wants to eat the double cheeseburger, and then the part of you that knows that that's not the right thing to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's in a way it's multiplicity, but in another way it's the way we process life. And there is an aspect of ourselves, um, theoretically, based on the spiritual worldview, there is an aspect of ourselves that was never born and will never die. And that aspect is consciousness. That aspect is spirit. It's eternity. It's our connection to God, to the universe, to the creative force behind all things. And that's our higher nature.
Okay.
And that's where our highest wisdom and great creative intelligence, that's the crown chakra. And then we have our lower nature. And our lower nature is all of the chakras besides the crown chakra. Our lower nature is what they call in the Book of Mormon the natural man. Our lower nature is our lower animalistic urges. Sometimes we call it our animal nature or our material nature. The part of us that has the lower urges that's demonstrated through greed, addiction, lust, gluttony, all the typicals, they're telltale signs that someone's not operating out of their spirit. They're operating out of their lower nature versus their higher nature. So the lower nature is the part of you that eats the double cheeseburger anyway, uh, and wants the double cheeseburger. And then the higher nature is the part of you that doesn't even want the cheeseburger to begin with. The higher nature is the part of you that is like over here trying to encourage you not to take it. And you think about that angel on the one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, you know, and they're you. It's not another entity, it's not another being. It's you as a sovereign free will being having a creative decision about how you're going to approach whatever's going on. Sometimes you choose to have the cheeseburger, and sometimes you're happy that you did that, and sometimes you're not happy that you did that, and then the cycle continues. And so the higher nature is the wisdom that you've already got, the spirit, and the lower nature is the temporary experience of what it's like to be an animal human creature right now.
100%. And so, like, I think we can all agree, like, spiritual development is almost pretty much trying to connect with the higher nature and pretty much be aware of the lower nature so it doesn't take control of you, right?
Exactly, definitely.
Okay. So like you do like in your book you have like so many different like practices and stuff that you can help exercise to kind of like understand the principles that you're talking about. We can't go into all of them because you it's a very in-depth book, but like let's talk about a couple of them. I think my favorite one or one that I always like to talk about is kind of like understanding our inner narration that like we have in our thoughts and you do a great job of like even making meditation practice to kind of see that inner narration and then actually kind of actually work on changing it. Do you want to maybe go into that a little bit, explain that to my audience?
Yeah, I want to preface it a little bit because the first and foremost thing is about actually experiencing the fullness of your life right now. So, what I'm about to say, these are tools to help understand your own life as it is from different perspectives so you can make conscious changes. So, what I'm about to say in an unbalanced way could actually cause someone to overanalyze their life, think about it too symbolically, and therefore not embody it. And so that's the disclaimer. You always want to be present and actually living the life, not overanalyzing, and not living as so detached from life that you're not in the true experience of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the preface. But yeah, like you said, the inner narration. We have an inner dialogue that processes what's going on. I like this. I don't like this. I don't like the way he said that. I don't like the tone of this. I don't like the color of that. I like this. Ooh, that smells good. What's that? Ooh, yum. Oh, yuck. We have all these different thoughts. Sometimes they even contradict. Sometimes if we were to really zoom into each thought, we would realize that each one is like a spectrum. And if you say, I like that, it's not one thought that says, I like that. You zoom in, and it's every gradient of like and dislike. You have all those thoughts programmed unconsciously just in the phrase, I like that. It's an infinite number of other possibilities. Just one thought has all these different expressions. And so the idea is that everything that populates the most conscious, active part of your mind that you experience right now. So everyone listen to your own thoughts right now. What are you thinking now? Those thoughts, the most active things that come up in your mind right now, those are the thoughts that are mostly influenced by what you're experiencing now, and mostly influenced by what you've heard before, what you've taken in, what I call in the book psychic diet, your psychic nutrition, what your psyche takes in. So the words and the radio shows and the songs and the lyrics and everything that you take in acts as raw data for all those thoughts to be drawn from. And so the inner narrative is sort of a shuffling together spread of all of the different things that you've experienced as they are triggered and related to with your emotional and energetic bodies as you move through life. So different circumstances call up different sympathetic resonances in the memory, and you remember this and you remember that, and it causes different associations. I smell this. I go past Cinnabon at the mall. My mom used to make cinnamon rolls. I want to go to Cinnabon. You get these, and then you have the present moment higher nature. And then the higher nature says, dude, you don't go to Cinnabon. It's not the right thing. You don't need the Cinnabon. And then you breathe and you allow that higher nature message to make its way into the body. And you say, I'm not going to eat the effing Cinnabon. Why? Because I don't want to harm my body. I don't want to abuse my body right now. I don't need the Cinnabon, And so the inner narrative is all that chatter that's going on in your mind at any given time. I like to give a couple different examples, remembering that disclaimer, that these are just tools to help you observe and experience your own life from different perspectives. But one of the tools that I like to look at is looking at your life like it's a blockbuster movie, like it's a box office hit, $100 million plus budget movie, and that you're the star of this movie. And what are we learning? What's the character? Every single moment, what you did before you listened to this podcast, when you were by yourself, that hour was part of your movie. That hour of what you did all by yourself is part of that movie. Who am I when just the audience is watching? It's just me and the universe, And so you look at your life like it's a novel, and you're one of the main characters. You look at your life and as a movie. You look at your life as a myth, as an epic myth, and you're the Krishna of your myth. You're the Jesus of your myth. You're the Hercules of your myth. And you take a moment and you look at it, and it's not to overinflate and it's not to blaspheme. It's to look at your life and recognize your own divine origin, that you are a child of divine source, and then say, what is the epic mythos he's going to live out right now? What is this character doing? How are they approaching these things? How are they? And it becomes an active imagination dialogue. So that inner narrative is no longer an automatic chatter from the unfoldment, like a chemical reaction of whatever you've already experienced. It becomes a conscious, you remind yourself of who you are, and you remind yourself temporarily, you reflect on that meditation as a movie. Your life is a movie. This challenge that you're going through is a scene in a movie. What's the right thing to happen next? What would you yell at the TV screen? Don't open the door. Don't open the door. Why did the door? Oh man, he opened the door. Now the monster's there. And if he would have just left the door open, the monster couldn't open the door from the other side. You know what I mean? There are things that come up in our minds when we depersonalize the circumstances, and we must get real and realize we're not perfect. And it helps when we look at ourselves as a character in a movie. We realize we're not perfect. We see ourselves objectively, and then we can support that character through wisdom, love, compassion, and intelligence, and help craft that new narrative.
Yes.
But it does take practice, it does take practice.
Yeah, 100%. And it does take practice, but a lot of, like how you were saying, it first is to kind of recognize it and kind of see it, because even in your book you were talking about the more you actually start paying attention to your inner narrative and like do these practices you talk about, you can start coming down into your core beliefs. And like, maybe do you want to like kind of see or tell our audience like what these core beliefs are? Because like the truth is, once you start actually seeing like what, or actually being aware of what you believe like inside of you, and you can find some beliefs that are really hindering your like progress spiritually or in any kind of part of your life. So if you want to maybe tell our audience like once you start recognizing these core beliefs, what they are and like how they affect you.
Right. I was just speaking with a client yesterday who was saying, who had this complaint, and they said, I'm concerned about this. Look, I've got this just right. I've got this just right. I've got everything just right. I've got this perfectly. I have an unwavering commitment to my guru. I have an unwavering commitment to my nutrition plan. And he said the word unwavering 3 different times. And I just wanted to say, why don't you let it waver a little bit? Breathe. Soften what you think you already know. It doesn't mean you need to go do anything that crosses a boundary. Be unwavering with your boundaries.
Yeah.
But when it comes to certain things, especially with other people, okay? Don't cheat on your wife. You know what I mean? When I'm talking about this, I'm not giving you permission to go do something that's blatantly dysfunctional because you're wavering. You know what I mean? What we want to do is soften a little bit. We don't know everything. The introduction to my first book, Practical Meditation for Beginners, first of all, it's called Practical Meditation for Beginners, but it's actually advanced meditation techniques. So the idea that it's called Practical Meditation for Beginners is because we need to cultivate a beginner's mind. And so I didn't want to write a book, Advanced Techniques for Expert Meditators, because you're going to get the most blocked, egocentric, crazy people attracted to that book. What I wanted was sincere, open-hearted, open-minded people who would say, okay, I'm going to look at this beginner's book. And then you end up providing them a lot more than they realized they would be able to handle, but they're perfectly available, they're perfectly ready to handle it because of that beginner's mind. And that's where we get our core beliefs. We have to realize that there are unconscious things already directing our lives. Carl Jung says, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. And so what we want to do is realize that we're participating. The little decisions that we make are from unconscious beliefs. And what we want to do is tune into them. When we have a deeper relationship to, okay, well, my relationship to food right now, for whatever reason, is not getting me the healthy body that I want and need right now. If nothing else, this pandemic has highlighted that we must take excellent care of our bodies. We must support our immune systems. And so a lot of people are saying, wow, I don't want to eat sugar because it hinders my immune system. It causes inflammation. It makes me more receptive to viral contraction, you know? And so your old belief around sugar, that it's not a big deal, and that it's okay to have 20 grams of sugar in my breakfast cereal in the morning. Your old belief around sugar now needs to change, and there are core beliefs that are unconscious, and some of them are little, like that, like sugar's not a big deal, Well, sugar's highly addictive. And it does have a huge impact on your emotions and your body's ability to process nutrients and, a whole long list of other things. And it's directly linked to all of the major causes of death. Hello, you know, outside of accident, etc. It's related to heart disease, it's related to diabetes, it's related to cancer. It aggravates all three of these things, which are major, major healthcare problems in all different cultures around the world to varying degrees. So what we're looking at is we have core beliefs that need to change. One of our collective national core beliefs in the United States is a relationship. It's an unconscious core belief in relationship to healthcare. We have to proactively cultivate health. We have to proactively cultivate health by 100 years ago, if you were running down the street, they'd be like, is everything okay? What's wrong? Who are you running from? What are you running to? What do you need? But today, it's in consciousness that if you run, it's good for you. Running has a bunch of different benefits. Just running. Life has become so easy. We have to choose to just run just because we need to run. We no longer have to run to or from things as much, you know? And so there's a core belief around running that changed, a core belief around the basal metabolic rate that changed, a core belief around the body that changed collectively. And now we need that collectively around healthcare, around housing, around the economic process, finances, around interest rates, around banking. You know, there's a lot of different things where we have collective core beliefs that are hurting more people than helping. And the ratio to hurting versus helping is higher than you think. It's higher than people realize. It's not, well, half of America is Republican and half is Democrat. No. It doesn't matter what you identify as. The way this economic system, it can harm you whether you know it'll harm you or not. Sugar was bad for you before we knew it was bad for you. Now we know, so now we got to change that core belief. And we have to say, look, I'm going to have monk fruit sweetener instead of sugar, which is a 0-calorie, super sweet antioxidant superfood that's going to give my body nutrients and it's sweet. Boom. Make me some ice cream with that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You create a core belief change, and then a behavioral change can happen. I'm no longer making ice cream with sugar. I'm making it with monk fruit, and now my ice cream is a freaking superfood. Boom. You know, that's the evolution that we want. That's the kind of healing that we want in our lives. That's a symbol for the kinds of success and achievement and overcoming that you can experience by identifying the core belief, cutting it out, you know, getting rid of it. Cut that out. Cut that shit out. You know what I mean? Look at the core belief, realize that you might not be right about it, breathe into it, and be a smart person. Make a new decision. Do a smart thing. You could be smart. You're freaking smart. You know, we're all smart people. We have to just take that moment to recognize what the core belief is and be smart right then, right there with that core belief in ourselves. And it's, you know, just like everything, it does take time.
It takes time, yeah. And the one thing I love about your book is like you always make these like practices at the end of chapters or even in the middle that can help you get to this. And I love you have a mixture of like meditation and journaling, which is like kind of what my path has been for the last like few years, and that's really helped me. And especially with your core beliefs, like to be meditating and journaling at the same time, because you meditating gets you to your higher nature, like you would say, gets you to that a more present state where you can actually look at your core beliefs without judgment, and then
Exactly.
that's where you can like write them down so that now they're on paper and they're there for you to like keep looking at, and this is how like you can really be able to like make these changes and these big core beliefs. And yeah, like
Exactly. So I want to say something about that. The reason we do that, and this is something that the Christian monks used to do, and they called it Lectio Divina. And they would read the sacred words, and then they would meditate and pray on them, and then they would write about it, and they'd contemplate and write. And so I tried to infuse my books, all of them, with those aspects. Where with modern spirituality, the idea is we have the sacred word part, which is truth. So I'm not saying that this book is scripture, but I am saying that it's my attempt at truth. So it's truth. So we begin by reading the words of truth and letting the healing ideas come in, because the truth is just healing by itself. Just knowing that we're all one is the greatest healing that can come through. Knowing, shifting from fear and disconnection to love and connection is a healing idea just on its own. So you go into the book and you study the healing ideas, and then you go into that practice with it, the exercise, the meditation, and then which takes you into a certain state of consciousness. And so you were in a state of consciousness before you started reading, and then by reading, doing the exercise, and then and having that meditative consciousness genuinely saturate you, you enter into a new state of consciousness, and then you put pen to paper. And it's like, leave an imprint, write it down, because you're not always here. This part of you is not always the loud part of you. This is usually the quiet, shy, timid part of you that's hiding, that doesn't want to be out there when you're being crazy, when your anger and crazy and greed and selfishness and impatience is out there, you know. And so you put pen to paper because that's an imprint of a really, really clean, it's theoretically intended to be an opportunity for you to leave an imprint of the cleanest aspect of your highest nature.
100%. And yeah, like you were saying, you're not always going to be there. So you're not always in that meditative state, because when you go back into your lower nature, and let's say if you go back into some like habitual pattern that or behavior, like you're going to get sucked in. And like we all know, when we're in like a habitual pattern, when we're like, ooh, I want that bad food, or I want this or that, like we
Right.
all know, like our mind's only thinking about that, our mind's completely on that. The whole idea of like like scoping back and like looking at the behavior and being like, hey, what is this, like that doesn't exist at that time.
And that's sort of the Jedi magic part of this whole thing. The whole Jedi mind magic, the mind control part. No one's controlling your mind, it's you controlling your mind. So when I say mind control, it's you controlling your own mind. But it's that moment when you used to love the blah, blah, blah taco at Taco Bell. You used to just love the blah, blah, blah taco, and it was like so good with all its blah, blah, blah. And you used to get it every time. And now when you drive past a Taco Bell, you think about the blah, blah, blah taco. You've decided, I'm not going to eat total garbage and inflame my body anymore, so I'm not going to have any more Taco Bell for the rest of my life. And so you're saying, like, that's part of my reality now. And now when you drive by, there's a part of you that has that muscle memory, that has those neural pathways, that template, that those directions. You know exactly how to do it. You know how to get into that drive-through. You know exactly what to call it. You know the magic words. You might even know the exact number it'll cost. It's $9.27 or whatever, And so you have to battle the inertia of all those past experiences. And so you have to be willing for it to be a little bit uncomfortable for a little bit. And that's the refiner's fire. the purification, the baptism by fire, so to speak, where that tension, that challenge, you kind of got to breathe through it, and you kind of sometimes got to talk yourself through it, and you got to, oh Lord, if you listening, give me strength right now. Sometimes you gotta do what you got to do to get strength, but you want those challenging places in the workout where you want to feel the burn in the workout, and that's what changes the nervous system and changes the brain, rewires the muscle memory, it rewires the neural pathways, and you've got a new template in your system. You've amplified and strengthened and deepened the imprint of that new healthy behavior every time you drive past Taco Bell and think about something else. Every time you drive past a Taco Bell and don't go in, and a day goes by, you've tweaked your frequency to a new timeline where greater health, greater possibilities available to you,
100%.
So it's about choosing that intervention for yourself, choosing your own intervention.
Yeah, and even like I can even skip ahead to like another part of your book because this is kind of the same thing you're talking about, but it is kind of changing those like choosing your intervention. But like you talk about practicing loving kindness meditation and like compassionate meditation, and this is something I remember I did a few years ago that really helped me, and this was just because like I was a comedian, or I still am a comedian, but like when I was when I was kind of like observing my mind and everything, I noticed like I had a lot of like jealousy, I had a lot of resentment, and especially for other comedians when their careers started taking off, and I felt like mine
So
wasn't.
typical.
It's
Oh,
so
comedians.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So like
it's a
this was
culture.
it is, and so like this was one thing I started practicing loving kindness meditation, where you would think about somebody you really love, like maybe a family member, and you generate that loving feeling and let it absorb your body. And then you would start thinking of the people that brought up those feelings of resentment, jealousy, and then try to give that love back to them. And it slowly started to weaken that the jealousy, the resentment, and this is me kind of choosing that I recognize this jealousy and resentment are those lower nature of me that don't do nothing but cause me pain. But
Hmm.
now that I can like put that love on those people that cause that, it really weakened those
Hmm.
pathways. And like now I really don't deal with resentment and jealousy that much at all, and it's allowed me and even my career to flourish a lot better because of that.
Well, yeah, and what's interesting about that is two things. One, if jealousy and resentment arises, we've got to vent it out, we've got to deal with it, we have to integrate it. But if it's not arising um, at all, if it's genuinely not arising, we're getting into a good place. That's part of why self-knowledge is so crucial. Are you suppressing the jealousy and resentment? Are you ignoring the jealousy and resentment, letting it pickle, letting it build, letting it ferment, letting it increase in potency, letting it, become infected? Or are you genuinely healing in a way where that's not your trigger right now? That's not the lesson you're going through right now. You're going through a different thing. That's not a challenge right now. And only the individual one of us can ever know those kinds of things. But it's in these kinds of practices that we even think to ask that question, you know.
Hmm.
It's it's in these kinds of contemplative practices. And so a big part of the whole purpose of this book is to merge uh, uh, effective spiritual principles that the majority of the world religions already agree on with scientifically proven techniques to allow you to transform. One of the core principles of all traditions is to, like you said, is to refine and alchemize those, I'm using different words, but to refine and alchemize the lower nature into higher nature. It's the spiritual journey of going up Jacob's ladder. It's refinement. It's shedding layers and getting back to the core of who you are. It's being born again. It's always coming back to that refinement, the deeper purity, walking the steps of initiation upwards, greater maturity, greater purity, greater goodness.
100%. And like even you were saying, because like you were just saying refinement and rebirth, and like these are kind of like terms used in like developmental psychology as well, where like Jung will be saying stuff like talking about different developmental stages of your life, and where you will have like a sort of rebirth which involves like a death of a part of yourself, right? And I know like a lot of Eastern philosophies kind of have their own way that they look at the path of like going above. So yeah, that's very cool. I love how you like talk about
Well,
some.
and in Christianity, we talk about getting to heaven. We talk about being with God. We talk about going to the throne room with God, being like God. Jesus is our brother, he's the son of God, becoming as much like him as possible. Those are the core things that are like really beautiful aspects of Christianity that sometimes when we get into churchianity, we lose the spirit. We go too deep into the letter of the law and we forget about the spirit of the law. And the letter of the law has to change with every generation, but the spirit of the law never changes, you know. And so there's getting to heaven, there's climbing the ladder, there's the 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 raising of the vibration. People are saying more and more. People are saying, I want to raise my vibration. You know, raising your vibration isn't about skincare and like nice music. Those things can be a part of it. I even talk about self-care, metaphysical self-care in the book, but it's more about your heart than anything. And in one of these books, one of these chapters in Modern Spirituality, I talk about something my friend Jennifer Sodini introduced me to when we were in Egypt together, around the notion of a ma'at.
Wait,
The
sorry, say that again.
ma'at, M-A apostrophe A-T.
Okay.
And it's an Egyptian archetype. And when you die, she is, I describe it in one of the chapters, at the beginning of one of the chapters. She essentially takes your heart and puts it on one end of a balance scale, and then a sacred ostrich plume, ostrich feather on the other end. And if your heart is as light as a feather, then you can go on to the higher dimensions. And otherwise, there's like an alternate fate. Um, but it's allowing the heart to be light, pure. It's not denying your character defects or mistakes. It's about working through them and having a sincere desire to work through them, allowing your heart to be in that open place. Sometimes they call it a broken heart, but as Rumi says, we sometimes need to break our heart. You will keep breaking your heart until it opens, I believe is the translation. You'll keep breaking your heart until it opens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to be open. It won't break if it's open.
And yeah, and I think how you were saying like how we talk about like pain or those negative kind of parts of ourself like that we want to work through. I like how you said like you can't just stop it. Like that's when you kind of resist it, and that's when you make the problem even worse. Like you have to kind of allow it to be and almost just kind of observe it and like kind of let it take its shape through that and kind of observe it with your higher self kind of thing. Is that, am I saying that properly?
Mm-hmm. And that's well articulated.
Yeah. So one thing I do love talking about on this podcast is like finding direction in life, finding purpose. Like this is something I think a lot of the people who listen to my podcast like to hear about because this is something I've always been interested in. Like I've always wanted to know why am I here, what am I going to do for my life, what direction do I want to go in, and then these spiritual practices helped me find that a lot. And in your book, you dedicate a lot of time to talking about that as well. And the one thing I really loved about it, you talked about finding purpose. So when people want to find purpose or direction in life, the main thing they go to is thinking. They start thinking about it. What am I going to do? I'm thinking, and you get into your thinking brain too much. And one thing you're just saying is like, no, get into the present moment, get into that meditative state, and that's where those answers of purpose and direction come to you more readily, and you'll start getting that clarity in life a lot better. And I found that amazing because, like, I do remember, like, maybe a decade ago when I was started thinking about this kind of stuff, I was just in my head all the time, like, what am I going to do in the future? Oh, I'll do this, and then this will happen, and then your mind gets into that, and like then nothing ever. There's no fruition to any of the stuff that you're thinking about. But when you start actually realizing that the present moment gives you way more answers and way more clarity, you become more inward directed, and then you would rather go inside to kind of look for those answers, and then they come to you more readily, and then you just become getting that direction, clarity, purpose. All of those things start growing organically over time.
Yeah, it's definitely earlier we talked about states of consciousness. Now we're talking about stages of consciousness. So a stage of consciousness is where you're at generally in your life. It's like in Spanish, it's the two verbs of ser and estar. Ser is to be, your stage, and then estar is to be right now, your state. You can drink ayahuasca and be in a really high state of consciousness right now, but you can still be totally rude, totally disrespectful, totally chaotic, totally dysfunctional, totally uncool in your life, and be at a low stage of consciousness, And you can also be at a really high stage of consciousness and be having a bad moment and be in a low state of consciousness, even though your stage is high. So the stage of consciousness is like the climate, and then the state of consciousness is like the weather.
Yeah, constantly changing.
Yeah, exactly. Based on subtle circumstances. And so what we want to look at is where are we in the process, And so when it comes to being totally present, it's where am I right now? Sometimes you want to be in your head and you're like, I've got to think about 100 things because I've got this master plan, and the universe is doing something, and the universe has my back, and everything is changing, and I'm manifesting my desires, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you know what? Can you go just fold the laundry right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, meanwhile, the dryer's done. Yes, the universe is doing all those things. The universe does have your back. You are manifesting your goals. Go finish doing the dishes. Do your laundry. Did you work out? Have you stretched today? Brush your teeth. Floss. Did you say a prayer? Call your mom. Are you done with everything that you have to do? Being really present, you'd be surprised how much flossing regularly helps. And you won't really realize it until you do it, and then you don't do it. So it's the reality of these different things that we can do right now that make subtle changes that guide us on our path. And so when it comes to finding our purpose, we have to realize first and foremost that we already know your purpose. And your purpose is to love. Your purpose is to be loving. Your purpose is to heal. Your purpose is to grow. Your purpose is to expand, to experience human life and all that it has. Your purpose is to be here, and then you get to have creative input beyond that point. God lets you choose what colors of paint you want to use on the blank canvas he's given you. And so your light becomes your art. And that's why, that's where the last chapter, the entire title of this particular book is called Modern Spirituality, a guide to the heart of mindfulness, meditation, and the art of healing. And so when you think about the art of healing, doing something artistically, you're living artistically. You want to know what kind of creative person you are? You want to know what kind of powers you have? Think about what you've created and not created in your life. That's the level of magic that you're at. That's the level of creative power that you have. The way you're living, how your relationships are. What are people? back to you now. So the art of healing implies that your purpose can look a lot of different ways. The bodhisattva, we talk about the thousand-armed bodhisattva in the book. In each of her hands, she has a different tool because she knows who she is. She's a bodhisattva, which means she's a compassionate, ancient being that will continue to reincarnate for the purpose of healing suffering. So she's going to incarnate as a baker and heal suffering through baked goods. She's going to incarnate as a woodworker, and she's going to transmit loving kindness and compassion and heal suffering through woodworking. She's going to incarnate as a musician. That's why she has a violin bow in one hand. She has a pen in one hand. She has a paintbrush in one hand. She has a screwdriver in one hand. She has, all different things in her 1,000 hands, because it doesn't matter what she does. It matters how she does it. It matters the consciousness that she infuses it with. Marianne Williamson said in her book, A Return to Love, anything you do is infused with the consciousness with which you do it. And so the idea with that is, it's your purpose might be being a comedian. Your purpose might be being a podcast host. Your purpose might be blank. It has nothing to do with being a comedian or being a podcast host. It's about how you do it. So it's about what you bring as far as consciousness. And then you get to be creative. You get to create. You're supposed to create. It's supposed to be an expression of your own unique individuality from that point.
Hell yeah. No, I agree completely. And you're right. You're supposed to create. And yeah, you're like, I think spirituality always has this essence to it of like finding that creative part of yourself and like being able to create your life. And that's why it's so like empowering to like just the self as a person.
When it comes to finding your purpose, there's something in Buddhism that comes to mind called the 3 jewels. And the first jewel is the Buddha, the second jewel is the Dharma, the third jewel is the Sangha. And these 3 jewels, you check back in with those 3 jewels and your purpose will be reminded. You'll remember your purpose. The Buddha is you in your Buddha nature, your Buddha consciousness. We're not worshiping an outside Buddha. Buddha and Christ are titles. That means the highest nature within you. The first jewel is your own purity, your higher nature, your spirit. That's the first jewel. You check back in with who you are, which is a child of the universe, a child of God. You're a daughter of God. You're a son or a daughter or a child of the universe. You're of divine origin. You have the Buddha nature. So that's the first jewel. Remember what you are, because none of this other stuff is even relevant. So first and foremost, that's what you are. Secondly, the Dharma. That's the upward mobile trajectory, the healing goodness, the spiritual trajectory. The Dharma is the purpose, which is the transmission of love and goodness into the universe. So the next thing is, are you on that vibe? Are you on the upwardly mobile energy vibe? Are you creating goodness? Are you in love with the universe? So the first step, check in with the Buddha in you. Second step, check in with the Dharma. The Dharma is your purpose, your passion, the upwardly mobile trajectory. And the clue is the material universe is illusion. So it doesn't matter if you're a baker, a Quaker, or a candlestick maker. What matters is how you do it, that you're on the upwardly mobile trajectory. That's what Dharma is. Then the third one is Sangha. Are you surrounded by people who are with you? Are you surrounded by other people who are with you on that upwardly mobile Dharma? Are you living with people who are supporting the Dharma in you, supporting the Buddha? That's how you connect back into your purpose. Because if you have a disconnection from any one of those 3 jewels, you're going to experience a sense of disconnection from your purpose. Sometimes you're around people and you realize they are healthy, good Sangha. I'm the one who's being negative. I'm the one who's disconnected from my Dharma. I'm the one who's disconnected from the Buddha within, from my own Buddha nature. you know, and you begin to recalibrate those things. And then you realize, oh, maybe some of the people around me are not healthy people to keep in my life. If they need to get drunk every single time we go out, maybe I'm not going to go out with them anymore. Maybe I'm going to invite them to tennis. Maybe I'm going to invite them to take an online meditation class with me instead. You know, it's like you can interrupt the pattern. You can provide your own intervention, but it first begins with getting present and checking in with those three jewels. Who are you? Why are you here? Who should you be surrounded by?
Yeah, hey, that was really cool. I like that a lot. So like usually at this point in the podcast, I ask the question, God, yay or nay. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get a big yay from you.
God, yay or nay? Well, can I ask you to define God in the question?
Well, like my whole reason I love this question is because it kind of gives the guest an opportunity to describe what their belief or what they think God is, and like the one thing with you, unless you've been kind of like talking about it this whole podcast, more of like our higher nature or like kind of our consciousness. I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts you want to share on that at all?
Yeah, maybe one or two. The Yeah, yay. God, yay. And I was thinking about it. It's not just God, yay, as in, yes, I believe that God's real. It's more like God, yay, with an exclamation point. It's more like God, yay. It's more like, what a really wonderful, good thing that God's real. Okay, so my mom sent an email to me and all my brothers just the other day. I have five brothers, and my mom sent an email, and she was talking about a spiritual realization she had, and she was also talking about not liking the results of the election, kind of being disappointed because she was a Trump supporter. And I worked for Marianne Williamson, who was running for the Democratic nomination. I campaigned for Bernie Sanders, who was running for the Democratic nomination, and I voted for Joe Biden. So we have a disagreement in that one area, which is fine. People have disagreements. But what was so funny is when I saw that email, I just couldn't even deal. I couldn't even relate, couldn't even engage. And I just had to breathe through it. And it was like, you know what? She's having her own parallel experience, you know, and going into this idea of God, yay or nay, is like she is justifying her vote because of what she believes God to be and what God to be up to. And that's how I'm justifying my vote, you know? And so it was really an interesting thing to see how that belief or not belief in God is manifesting, you know? I think, and then so I got really, really activated, and I was like, yikes, I can't believe my mom's a Trump supporter. This is crazy. No. And and it was an automatic reaction because it wasn't even really how I feel. It was more about how the collective responds to that, what the collective energy dynamics around politics are. I experienced the collective dynamics around it automatically. It wasn't mine. It was a collective dynamic that I just experienced and processed through and breathed through. And then I went on Facebook and I said, I'm so glad that God is real and mercy is infinite because OMG, I couldn't handle it. OMG, you know? And the what that means to me is something that I love about Kabbalah is there's an expression, there's none else besides him. And we say him, it doesn't really mean gender, it means they or the one. It means him or her. And there's none else besides him means there's nothing else besides the one. And in Buddhism, they say there is one life, but infinite points of view. And it doesn't mean there's one lifetime and infinite points of view. It means that the life that exists within your incarnation, within your body, that is alive, that's hearing these words right now, is the same as the life that's inside me, speaking these words to you. There's one life. We're having parallel experiences, temporary separate ego experiences in these separate bodies, but there's one life. And you and I have different points of view, and there are infinite beings in the universe. So there are infinite points of view. and that's the healing idea, that theoretically at the core of all things can heal anything and everything through consciousness.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And actually, now that you were kind of mentioning like how you were thinking about you're involved in
So that's
politics.
God.
Yeah, that is God.
So that's God. And that's why there's cause to celebrate, you know? That's why I said God, yay!
A lot of enthusiasm. Yeah, because like you, I saw on your Instagram that you do, you're actually very involved in like politics, science, education, and like you're doing like what do you call it? Kind of a show or not a show, whatever it's called. A talk with people, and you kind of talk about like this collective awakening in these areas. Do you maybe want to give us a little insight into like what you're working on or what you're like talking about with different people?
Definitely, yeah, thank you. Yeah, this week I'm really excited because I'm speaking at an event called School of Tomorrow. It's through an organization called Beacon House School, and it's an educational system through Malaysia and Pakistan and a number of other Asian and Middle Eastern countries. And there are, I believe, around 500,000 students that they serve through their networks. And I'm speaking at their annual conference this week on mindfulness in schools as a way to support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I love the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so I'm super excited to be speaking on that at this wonderful international event in a way that can really help change the way people are experiencing education right now, which is cool. And then I'm also speaking at the Emerging Sciences Foundation Symposium. They do a wonderful symposium every year with a lot of really cool thinkers. And this year, for the first time, I'm giving the keynote. I've never given the keynote. It's actually my first time even speaking at it, but I've been going to it every year. So I'm speaking at it, I'm giving the keynote this year. And that's the talk on collective awakening and the political renaissance. It's more than a revolution that we need. We don't need to revolve and do the same thing over again. Revolve literally means going around in a circle. So we don't need to do any of this again. Been there, done that, thank you. Can we all be present and have a collective intervention? What I see as the video that I'm going to be sharing for this talk at the Emerging Sciences Foundation, I'm going to be sharing the intro that Marianne Williamson gave at the second Democratic debates last year, which was very inspiring and very powerful, nonpartisan, very spiritual and universal. Really excited about that. And the concept there is that we need a renaissance. We need creativity like we've never seen before in politics. We need innovation, intelligence, open-mindedness, compassion, generosity, experimentation, all at once. And so the way we're talking about it is Renaissance. I do live in a city called Venice. I live in Venice, California, and it is, of course, named for Venice, Italy, where the quote-unquote Renaissance took place, where there was art and sculpting and